السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Indeed, all thanks is to Allah. We seek refuge in Him, then we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own selves and the evil of our actions, for indeed, whomsoever Allah Azza wa Jalla has guided in Islam, no one can misguide, and whomsoever Allah has misguided away from Islam, no one can guide. And I stand before you and I bear witness and I testify openly and freely. There is no deity, there is no Lord, there is no ilah, except Allah Azza wa Jalla. I stand before you and I testify openly and freely that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ibn Abdullah is the last and final messenger and the seal of all prophethood. O you who believe, be God conscious of a Lord who created you from one soul, and from that soul many men and many women. And fear Allah in whose name you appeal to one another and honor family ties. Indeed, Allah is ever over you an observer, no watchman. Allah Azza wa Jalla is describing to us the reality of this life, to which most, if not all of us, fall victim to when He says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, اعلم, no, اعلم أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة. Know that this worldly life, Allah is telling us, He's describing the reality of this life, and He gives three descriptions. Know that the reality of this life, the reality of this world, is no more than a play, a place where you go to have fun, a playground, an amusement, wazina, a beautiful playground, He describes it as something beautiful, the reality of this life. And the best parable that we see is those of us who go to amusement parks or theme parks. And we go to amusement parks or theme parks for what purpose? But for the purpose to leave off the stresses of this life, to forget our worries, to forget about our debt. Rather, some of us will even go into more debt just so that we can take a week off and go to Disneyland so that we can forget about the worries of this life. This is the parable of the reality that we're living in. Allah is describing it as a beautiful playground, a place that we go and play and have fun and amusement. And elsewhere He describes the reality of this world when He says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ, that this worldly life is only but a deceptive enjoyment. It's an enjoyment. We're having fun. We're being deceived from the reality. Deceived into what? Deceived into thinking that we have more time. That I can repent later. That I can turn back later. That I'll repent next week or next year. I'll repent tomorrow. That I'll go make Hajj in my 70s or 80s. And we ignore the fact that there is a hereafter. That we prefer this life. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He even calls us out. He calls us out what's in our hearts. In Surah Al-A'la, the surah that we read almost every Jummah after the khutbah. He says, بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. That you prefer this worldly life, and the hereafter is better and more lasting. بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيا, that you prefer this worldly life. So what is the message? It's been delivered. And we hear the message, and we know the sayings, and we know the verses that we need to correct ourselves and start living a purpose-led life. To know that there is a hereafter waiting for us, and to not only know it, but to prepare ourselves every breath that we have, every moment that we are alive. So long as we are above the ground, we are preparing for this moment, trying to do the best of deeds, the best of actions. And a great starting point is good character. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us in the Sahih Hadith, "Man min shay'in أثقل في ميزان المؤمن يوم القيامة من حسن الخلق." That there is nothing more heavier on the scale of a believer on the day of resurrection on his scale than good character. Imagine an actual scale where you bring the best of actions. Think about it. Put any action, Hajj, your Salah, your Siyam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying there is nothing heavier than good character. Such a great starting point. But how can we focus on good character when we are not living good character? When we are not showing good character? How many of us come to the masjid during, say, the most popular times? We'll say, for an example, Ramadan. Allahumma baligna Ramadan. May Allah Azza wa Jalla allow us to see the next Ramadan. Where we come to the masjid praying Taraweeh, showing and living these outward manifestations of worship. Salah after salah. And then we come home nasty and grumpy to our families. Spouses coming home nasty to their children, nasty to their wives. Wives coming home nasty to their husbands. Where's the good character? Tarawih up and down. Where's the good character? It's such an amazing starting point that the best and the most heaviest thing on the scale is good character. And we need to show that in our lives. I want to talk about two hadith. Beautiful, very beautiful hadith that really paint the picture of how we can spend little time that we have to achieve the greater reward. The first is a very long hadith, and I encourage you to read the whole thing if you have time after Salah. If you can't remember it, if you don't know what it is, you can always refer back to the ICF YouTube video that's posted on our YouTube channel. That the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a beautiful, beautiful, authentic hadith, according to Albani, he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَحَقُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ سُرُورٍ تُدْخِلُهُ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ. That the most beloved of actions, the most beloved of action to Allah Azza wa Jal is that you bring happiness to another Muslim. Think about the energy that you're putting out there. Are you a messenger of happiness to your family, to your community, to the people around you? Do you bring happiness to those in your proximity? The most beloved of actions to Allah Azza wa Jal is that you bring happiness to someone else, that you bring happiness to a Muslim. Are we lifting one another up? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he continues the hadith. أو تكشف عنه كربة أو تقضي عنه دينا أو تطرد عنه جوعا. Or remove one of his troubles, or forgive his debt, or feed his hunger. I challenge you gather 100 Muslims and ask them what they feel is the most beloved of actions to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And you're going to get some answers. Some will say Salah, some will say Hajj, but most and many will not know that the most beloved of actions to Allah Azza wa Jalla is that you bring happiness to another Muslim. And just in case there's any ambiguity of what the Prophet Muhammad said in his hadith, the way he finishes it is beautiful and amazing and inspiring. He says, وَلَأَنْ أَمْشِي مَعَ أَخٍ لِي فِي حَاجَةٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ أَعْتَكِفْ في هذا المسجد يعني مسجد المدينة شهرا. That I walk with my brother regarding a need of his is more beloved to me than I seclude myself in this mosque, meaning the mosque of Al-Madinah, for a month. In i'tikaf for a month. Imagine up and down, when we pray i'tikaf, we seclude ourselves from the world. We turn our phones off. Prayer after prayer, dua after dua, the most beloved of places. Mecca and Medina, where our salahs are multiplied multiple times over. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his i'tikaf, a month in Medina, that he walks with a brother in his needs, that is more beloved to him than i'tikaf in Masjid al-Medina for a month. Subhanallah. Who here knows a Muslim in need? Who here knows a Muslim in a time of need? There are millions of them. And certainly on our minds is Palestine. People who are in struggle, who are in utter chaos. More beloved to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that he walked with his brother in a time of need. And the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam described it is beautiful. That you may not have the answer to your brother's problem, that you may not know how to solve his problems, but the way he describes it is that you walk with him, whether that's physically or metaphorically. Look at the essence of presence, that you're just there. You're not solving his problems. You may not have the answer. If you could, you would, but you're there to support one another, to be there for one another, to bring happiness to one another. We need to think about how we're spending our time. Are we bringing hardship to our fellow Muslims? Are we being a messenger of happiness? أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. A couple quick announcements, inshallah. Please remember to pay your Ramadan pledge amount for the expansion project by December 31st. To take advantage of tax deductions in 2023, donations can be made online, by check, or cash in person. Homeschooling Co-op Committee is hosting a hands-on learning event for homeschooling families Wednesday, December 27th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here at ICF. The ICF is starting the food distribution from the food bank again here at the masjid. And if anyone is interested in the food bank, please fill out the form on the ICF website. And lastly, we have a dear brother of ours whose uncle just passed away in Pakistan. Ask Allah to forgive all those that are dead and those that are amongst us Muslims. Jazakumullah khair. Hadith number 2. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is telling us that if the hour is established and in your hand is a seed or a seedling, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is telling us that you listen to plant that seed. And there are many beautiful, beautiful lessons that we take from this hadith alone. And brothers and sisters, if you could please move up to make room for those who are coming in, jazakumullah khair. Many lessons that we take from this hadith, the first of which is urgency. Allah is describing to us when He says, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, to race one another in the actions of good. Another beautiful lesson that we take is that a Muslim should always be a contributor of good no matter the circumstance. Think about the circumstances in this hadith. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is saying if the hour is established amongst one of you, that you see the hour approaching you, and in your hand is a seedling to plant that seed. That the circumstance of the final hour, the ending of the world, the final hour, the utter chaos is undescribable. Allah He's telling us, إِنَّ زَلْزَلَةَ السَّاعَةِ شَيْءٌ عَظِيمٌ, that the shaking of the earth, that the earthquake of the final hour is a great, tremendous thing. I don't care what movies you've seen of the end of the world happening, with all the CGI graphics. Nothing will prepare you or any of us for what the eye will witness on that day. And when you look at the many verses that describe the hereafter, one of the amazing things that Allah describes about the ending of the world is that He says that every nursing mother will leave her nursing child. يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت. That you will see every nursing mother leave her nursing child. This is not to disparage the mothers, but it is to paint the picture and to show that there is arguably no greater connection between the nursing mother and her nursing child. And the situation is so bad, that the nursing mother will leave her child. So with that picture clearly painted, let's revisit the hadith. That it says if you have a seed or seedling in your hand, plant that seed. And don't worry about the outcomes, because the outcome was never in your hand. But to be a contributor, a vehicle, a means by which Allah uses you for good. Whether you see the results or not, wasn't up to you. Wasn't for you to see. But to push Islam forward, to be the contributor of good. Trying to do something for your community, trying to do something for your brothers and sisters. What are you doing? Ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I contributing? What seeds, whether metaphorical or physical, actual seeds, am I planting? Am I planting positive seeds of positivity for those around me? And when all of a sudden everyone starts planting these seeds, the perceptions of Muslims change. And like I said, do not focus on the results, just focus on the work. The results are inevitable. So I want to end by simply saying that instead of saying, what can my community do for me? Or how can my community help me? Ask yourself, question yourself, reverse the question, what can I do for my community? How can I help my masjid? How can I help my brothers and sisters in Palestine and those that are struggling all over the world? How, instead of saying, how can others be an instrument of happiness in my life? Ask yourself, how can I, how can you be an instrument of happiness in those that are around you? I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to unite all of us in our ranks. May Allah liberate all of our brothers and sisters who are being oppressed all around the world. May Allah free our brothers and sisters from captivity. May Allah uplift our brothers and sisters and keep them steadfast and firm on Islam. And may Allah make us an instrument of happiness for those around us and those around the world. عباد الله الله يرضى في الإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم واتقوه يجعل لكم من امركم مخرجا وغنى السميع.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Shoulder, straighten the rings. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله